This is the calling to order of the 262nd annual meeting of St. Mark's Parish. The original name, of course, was St. Mark's Parish because it predates the Episcopal Church. Let us pray. Almighty and ever-living God, source of all wisdom and understanding, be present with us as we take counsel for the renewal and mission of this your church, St. Mark's Episcopal Church in New Canaan, Connecticut. Teach us in all things to seek first your honor and glory. Guide us to perceive what is right, and grant us both the courage to pursue it and the grace to accomplish it through Jesus Christ our Lord.
Amen.
Okay, so many of you are veterans of this, and some of you are new to this. There is opening business and some motions and resolutions, and so I welcome everybody who's with us online, and obviously I welcome all of you who are here. If you're at home and you're having difficulties, type a note into the Zoom chat, and Jill or Father John, the man for all seasons over here, there's nothing he can't do. Preach and also do the technical issues here. They'll see. If you go to info@stmarksnewcanaan.org is another way for us to be able to be in touch with you or for you to be in touch with us. So these resolutions are going to be done here, certain ones by voice and hand by raising this. And the ballot is, of course, going to be paper in the room. And then for those of you who are home, many of you have seen this before. Scroll down when you're done with the ballot that arrives and hit submit. Now, just for those who are at home and are seeing this, for all of you who are streaming, only one person per device can vote. So this for George and Judy Webb is going to be a challenge, and I assume that you're going to have to sort this out between the two of you. Perhaps there's others of you, or maybe you're sitting in different rooms and watching this on two different machines, but Zoom can only do one digital vote per device. Now, throughout the presentations, you can post your questions and comments in the chat or in the Q&A box, and both are available controls at the bottom of your screen, and we'll do our best to address them as the meeting continues to unfold. And for those, of course, for those of you who are here, just stick up your hand. Okay, to begin, may I have a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes from last year's annual meeting? And a second from somebody? Okay, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed? The motion carries. If anybody opposed that, we would have had to send in mental health care. May I hear a motion to dispense with the reading of the roll of eligible voters? And a second? All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? The motion carries. I'd like to have a motion to authorize the wardens, the treasurer, and the director of operation to borrow funds as necessary for the financial stability of St. Mark's Parish. All those, I need a second? Second. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries. Okay, that's my initial business. It's 11:32. Janet?
Good morning, everybody. It is my role initially here to thank the departing leaders of vestry, retiring officers, Libet Field as clerk, the retiring vestry members, Jennifer DeLippe, Kate Mako, Kent Percy, and Ali Van Ness, and the retiring nominating committee members, Lauren Clancy, Carolyn Crisafulli, and Suzanne Harrison. A very big thanks to all of you for your service. Now I'd like to have a word about the elections. Today we are electing a total of 5 to the vestry. 4 are for the 3-year terms, and 1 is to fulfill the remaining year of John Seal's term, being vacated as he becomes clerk. The person who serves in the 1-year term will be eligible for election for a full term next year. We are electing 3 to the nominating committee for a 2-year term. So with your ballots, please vote for a maximum of the number specified, 5 for vestry and 3 for nominating committee. Ballots with more than that number of votes are disqualified. And on Zoom, you must select at least one candidate in each of the 4 questions in order to submit your ballot. Keep scrolling until you have voted in all 4 questions and can click on the submit button at the bottom. One more time, thanks so much to everyone who is standing for election today. You have served this community by doing so, whether or not you are elected. So thank you. Now here is Gabby Beecher, Chair of the Nominating Committee. Sorry. Yes. Oh, I've got it. Thank you. Good morning. Thanks to everyone for staying this morning and for everyone joining us from home. I also want to thank the other members of the nominating committee, Lauren Clancy, Carolyn Crisafulli, Suzanne Harrison, Rab Kerr, and Lori Wyckoff for their steadfast commitment to this process. Now, would the candidates for officers please come forward or raise your hand on Zoom? Senior Warden Janet Prill.
They don't have to come forward.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Junior Warden Mark Thorsheim. Treasurer Tim Dan. Clerk John Seal. And now for the candidates for vestry. Bill Avery. Sarah Casey. Nancy Geary.
She's traveling.
Robert Greaves. Perrin Hamilton. Anderson Kenny. Bev Landstreet. And Jack McFarland. Candidates for nominating committee. Jennifer DeLippi. Kyle Fry. Michaela Johnson. Zibby Perkins. Kent Percy. And Allie Van Ness. And lastly, for the alternate diocesan convention delegates, Lise Least and Libet Field. I don't want to walk by that speaker yet.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Gabby. Gabby, and you and your committee did a great job. Gabby was responding to emails when she was in Europe about all of this. Thank you. So just a question. Are there any nominations from the floor? For those of you who are here, we would raise your hand. And for those of you who are home on the Zoom stream, you can type that into the chat box. Are there any nominations? Okay, seeing none, Jill's going to launch the poll and the nominations are closed. I know that some of you may have already filled out your ballots. We're going to take a moment and have you fill out your ballots right now. And when that settles down, Janet is going to come forth and give us the senior warden's report, which we're all very much looking forward to. Okay, and I'm going to hum background music.
All right, balloting done. Good morning again. At the close of my first year as your senior warden, it's my privilege to provide an update on the past year, as well as our view on current priorities. I'd like to share with you some of the highlights of our life together as a parish this past year. Take a moment to celebrate some important successes with you, provide our view of new milestones and challenges, and share a brief update on what the vestry has been focused on. As you heard from Father Peter, so much is contributing to the vibrant life of our parish, but it's due in no small measure to the leadership of our fantastic clergy trio, headed by Rector Father Peter, along with Reverend Elizabeth and Father John. We are so fortunate to be inspired by their faith their impactful communications through sermons and podcasts, their dedicated pastoral care, as well as their helping us to clarify our vision for where our faith should be leading us. Other things. Last year, we had a record number of new families to join the parish, not only resulting in new members, but in lots of children. St. Mark's is getting known as the parish with all the kids. There are lots of kids in the Sunday school, 185 registered, with about 50 coming each Sunday. And as Peter mentioned, an astonishing 110 children participating in the recent World's Greatest Christmas Pageant. Youth is another telling measure. In 2025, about 45 high school youth participated in some way in the life of the parish. Youth group, trips, worship. 14 participated in the South Carolina service trip, and there are 15 confirmands in this year's class. The engagement of members of the parish in ministry serving those in need is another measure of the vibrancy of St. Mark's, such as with the Community of Hope, pastoral care by parishioners, or in the ministry of Francis the Pastoral Pup, or in the work of the Altar and Flower Guilds, or the important role of hospitality and welcome, such as coffee hour hosting, just to name a few. Not to mention the participation in pilgrimages, such as in France last February, or the upcoming trip to Harlem this coming March. Mayfair is an effort unto itself, engaging so many under the leadership of John Kennedy, the father, his leadership team, and many others as foot soldiers in this gargantuan effort. Nothing says St. Mark's in the town of New Canaan quite like Mayfair and the wonderful community engagement that it drives, as well as the funds earned for various outreach efforts. We are well known for our years-long commitment to providing funds to community organizations helping the underserved through our Outreach Grants Commission. The Gospel Garden plays a big role as well in providing fresh produce to the New Canaan Food Pantry and other organizations to reach local households. St. Mark's is also known for its world-class music program led by Maestro Ned Tipton and with his excellent choir. The Friends of Music program, started just 2 years ago, is bringing more of the community in our doors with very interesting programs and international talent. It's impossible not to mention St. Mark's world-class lean and mean staff, led by Director of Operations Jill Sotkoulis. Every person brings such great gifts and experience and dedication to their roles, and we are very fortunate to have such a fine team. We have cause for celebration on the financial front, the result of years of focus and effort on the part of the clergy, the vestries, and the whole parish. At this time, we are pleased to acknowledge the impact of the 3 capital campaigns conducted during Father Peter's tenure, which have been instrumental in growing the endowment, which now provides significant support to the parish on an annual basis. Additionally, we have seen marked growth in contributions to the annual fund, and that can be attributed to participation by more members of the parish, your generous support, and importantly, by increases in the number of pledging households. I'm sure you've heard much about the Inspired by Love Capital and Endowment campaign over the past year, as we sought to shepherd it to a successful conclusion. Beginning in 2021, and with a 4-year horizon, this campaign sought to bring in $7.5 million to further shore up our endowment, where 2/3 of the funds would go, as well as to provide the capital for much needed campus improvements. Through your generosity, St. Mark's achieved the goal of $7.5 million committed through gifts made over the 4-year life of the campaign. Here's a summary of the Inspired by Love's funds raised. Over $7.5 million was committed to this campaign by members of the parish. As of now, The vast majority of these funds, 92.4%, are in hand and at work. The remaining balance of a little over $573,000 includes an amount that has been forgiven due to changing circumstances in some households, giving us a final remaining amount of about $391,000. But here is the very positive bottom line. Jill has spoken with the households concerned, and we feel very confident that 97%, or about $375,000 of this balance, will be received by the church. This is what has been accomplished with these IBL funds. $4.5 million has been added to the endowment fund, which as a result now totals around $11.4 million. The endowment draw for 2026 will be $482,520,000 at a 4.9% endowment draw rate, which is a significant add to our annual operating budget. $2.2 million of the amount given went to much needed capital projects in the church, also in the administrative offices and around the campus. Let's take a look. In the church, the sound system has been renovated, impacting live services, streaming, and assistive listening. The restoration of the iconic reredos, the restoration of the Great South Window, organ, boiler, and roof repairs, important repairs to the bell tower, indoor air quality improvements, and as you well know, the recent major renovation of the lighting in the nave, which is nearly completed. And now the beginning of the restoration project of the original Needlepoint Communion kneelers. In the church office, this capital investment quite literally saved the building, as Peter mentioned. Gray Gables doing the following critical work: a total HVAC overhaul, including the addition of central AC, converted heat and replacement of the boiler and all mechanicals, the installation of insulation in the attic, asbestos abatement, and water damage repairs. Around the campus, the digital ecosystem got a major renovation, IT upgrades for communications and security, St. Mark's new website and visual identity, plus the paving of the north driveway, the installation of the courtyard pergola in conjunction with the preschool to better utilize that outdoor space, asbestos abatement and carpeting, capital repairs to clergy housing. This list of capital improvements is exhaustive, keeping our Director of Operations, Jill Sotkulis, and the Property Committee very busy over the past 4 years, and once more, made possible by the capital funds allocated from Inspired by Love. While all this happened because of your generosity, I would also like to take a moment to thank the campaign leadership team for their vision and dedication to help make this a success. The co-chairs, Suzanne Harrison and Brian Hetherington, along with Tom Berardino, Don Palmer, and myself, and direction from Father Peter and former Director of Stewardship and Development, Laura Watt. With this, I think we can call the Inspired by Love Capital and Endowment Campaign an unequivocal success. Switching gears now to St. Mark's Annual Fund and to another success story. As you may remember, we had a very strong year last year for the 2025 Annual Fund campaign, increasing significantly in both pledging households up to $325, as well as dollars committed. Given that step up, we decided to set a reasonable increase to the goal for the 2026 campaign to $330, which now, given the parish's increasing participation and generosity, we were able to achieve. The tally is 336 pledging households as of now, a healthy increase over 2025. In terms of dollars pledged, We expect more pledges to come in during the year, as often happens. And as with last year, as you see, contributions come in as well, which will help us to achieve the goal of $1.9 million. There's a lot of information on these charts, but I'm going to net out the most important points. St. Mark's is totally self-funded. The annual fund dollars that we all contribute provides 68% to St. Mark's operating budget. The endowment draw provides another 19%. Our contributions fund daily operations and every ministry. While we are grateful for all contributions, the amount of money given through pledging, and I will include non-pledge pledges given through DAF accounts, significantly exceeds other forms of gifts and is central to our parish's strategy for financial health. It's noteworthy that 38% of pledging households increased their pledge amounts this year. Families new to St. Mark's really stepped up, with 10 of the new families pledging in their first year with us. So thank you to all those who have helped us to achieve financial health of the parish. This is a great gift to St. Mark's and helps the vestry carry out its responsibility to plan and to manage a responsible budget. And as one of my colleagues likes to say, pledging is planning. I would like to recognize the important contribution made by Nancy Walton, our Director of Stewardship and Development, in the successful implementation of our annual fund campaign. She guided an outstanding team of parishioner volunteers as well over the past 2 years. The current team is shown. So in addition to Nancy, I'd like to thank Callie Creighton, Robert Greaves, Dennis Bermini, Kevin Murphy, Peter Ryan, and Rebecca Takula. While we're recognizing the good work done by fellow parishioners, it's a good time to take a few moments to highlight the elected members of our vestry. As we mentioned briefly earlier, we salute the 2 years of service of our clerk, Libet Field, and thank her for her efforts as clerk and as a member of the executive committee. By the close of this meeting, we will welcome John Seal in his 2nd year on the vestry to this new position. We also salute the 4 vestry members who are ending their terms today: Jennifer DeLippe, Kate Mako, Ali Van Ness, and Kent Percy. Thank you for your 3 years of service, your wise counsel, and your friendly collaboration in the work of the vestry. We look forward to continued teamwork with the vestry classes of 2027 and 2028 and the 5 new members who will be elected today. This is a sampling of topics on our vestry meeting agendas this past year. We stay on top of important aspects of parish life, participate in the financial management of the parish, and help oversee large projects and expenditures. A large focus this past year, as you've heard in some detail today, was to ensure the successful completion of the Inspired by Love campaign, and also to have a successful annual fund campaign. The vestry oversaw these every month with dashboards, monitoring the progress and work left to do. Understanding critical staffing needs in order for the church to attain its objectives has also been an important topic. Beloved community, which embraces inclusion for the whole body of the church, has been an initiative of the vestry, and we intend to expand this in the coming year. Newer initiatives concerning governance issues, a safety and security initiative, have taken a great deal of our attention these past months, and you will hear more about them from Mark in a few minutes. Things are indeed going very well in our parish, and we are pleased to celebrate our successes. There are things we must do to continue to thrive, however. Among the steps needed to be taken in 2026 is to provide the support and the funds necessary to hire a new full-time employee to the staff. It's become abundantly clear that our very professional and hardworking team is stretched too thin. The vestry has just approved a budget with a deficit we think we can manage in order to facilitate this addition. Most likely, as Peter mentioned, in the areas of engagement and communications. This added resource will not only help to alleviate the overload, but we hope will give the church the opportunity to do a more effective job in these areas. We also intend to continue the sharp focus on our stewardship to increase both participation and pledging. While we have grown these numbers, we hope that we can convince more households to commit to financially supporting the parish. Other areas that we are focusing on, having done such an amazing job putting the funds from Inspired by Love to use, as we saw today, our capital fund is now diminished. The vestry will be working with Father Peter and Jill to manage the capital needs of the parish to hold the line for the coming years. To provide focus to this process, we'll be picking up a long-range planning initiative to map out as best we can the needs of the parish over the coming years. I would like to take this opportunity now to say thank you for your participation today and to express my gratitude for your support in so many ways, adding to the life of the community. Now I'd like to turn the podium over to my partner, Junior Warden Mark Thorsheim, who will discuss our newest vestry initiatives.
Which button? This one. Nope. All right, officially, I think it's good afternoon. So I'm going to cover 4 topics related to vestry highlights for this year. We're going to update you on the safety and security initiatives we've taken. I'm going to lay out some background on the preschool and governance that we've tackled there. Hit outreach, which obviously was a big component to Father Peter's annual address and something that's always on our mind. And then, of course, beloved community, and give you some updates there as well. There we go. Great. So the church has always had an eye on safety and security. The team does a wonderful job day in, day out, keeping everything buttoned down here. Given the world we live in, it became clear it was time to bring a little bit greater attention to this area. And we began the work in the fall. We established a new standing committee led by our senior warden, Janet Prill, and are very, very grateful for the contributions to date from our members, Scott Hobbs, Brian Holstein, Paul Reese, John Scheller, Father Peter, of course, and the rest of our executive committee. Among the first steps were to identify 5 key focus areas. They are major liturgical events like our recent Christmas services, space and lighting, children on Sunday, medical emergencies, and active threat situations. As a result of our gathering a number of times and investing in many resources, we did the following things. We participated in the Episcopal Parish Network Safety Planning Webinar. EPN, where Jill Sekoulis serves as a board member and treasurer, was actually the moderator of a panel of professionals in the field. And that was just an incredible resource for all of us to digest. We conducted on-site safety reviews and looked to our local professionals, in particular, Deputy Chief Andrew Walsh from the New Canaan Police Department worked with us, and of course, our very own Wendy Hilbolt, who is EMS legend, as everyone knows. Those sessions were absolutely incredible, and interesting to note other faith organizations around town and in the area were doing very similar work at the same time. So made a lot of sense. We're very proud of tackling this topic. We wanted to put some concrete documentation in place around guidelines for each of those focus areas. We did some updated training for ushers, godly play teachers, and other ministries. We'll get much of the same this year. And Christmas Eve went extremely smoothly with truly a packed house. If any of you were there for the for the Christmas pageant, unbelievable. So proud that we took some initial steps, and one step at a time. And of course, safe training, safe church training, which is offered by the Connecticut Diocese, the ECCT, that is done across the vestry. That's good hygiene and just something that we do on a regular basis anyway. This year we will be continuing this important work. Governance. So St. Mark's Preschool is to many people in some very, very near and dear because their kids go there. But for those who are not as familiar, I wanted to give a little background. It represents the largest ministry of our church when you factor in all of the people involved, the teachers, the children, the children's families, and then the rest of the staff. It's also important to note that the school is thriving. It's doing wonderfully. I think Peter mentioned that the line is out the door, so to speak, to get into the school. We also are fortunate that Treasurer Tim Dan and our vestry rep Kate Mako have done a fantastic job building a strong working relationship with the leadership team there to build budgets and just overall build relationship between the church and the school. We want the school, in a sense, to operate itself, but it's important, of course, for the vestry and the church to have a very good handle on governance. And to that end, we undertook the construction and approval of new bylaws. And the great relationship that we have across the school and the church really set us on the right path to address those. They were outdated and really in need of a complete rewrite. So as Father Peter often says, there are seasons at times to do things. And for us, it really was the right season. The school is healthy. Our relationship is strong. It's always much better, to undergo a process like this when times are good. And so on top of that, our vestry rep, Kate Mako, is a very accomplished attorney. So that was timely for the work that needed to be done. In the drafting process, we also had Dave Pitney do a review of the final documentation, which was very helpful. And we owe thanks, of course, to our former senior warden, Stan Torty, the former managing partner there. I really would like to personally thank Kate on behalf of the vestry and our church. Kate, you're a pro, and we are blessed to have you serve. I'll touch on outreach grants. And, the church has had a longstanding tradition here of recommending and, thank you, recommending and issuing grants mainly to local nonprofits. The funds are generated from Mayfair as well as an outreach endowment that we have in place. This past year, 2025, we issued 32,000 of grants to 13 organizations. Naming just a handful, we support Laundry Love, the Gospel Garden, ABC House, Future 5, Pivot, Open Door Shelter, and the New Canaan Support Group, others as well. It's really, though, important to note, too, that outreach grants lead to more than financial support. For example, we had over 24 volunteers in regular volunteers for Laundry Love and the Gospel Garden. So outreach grants and outreach, at St. Mark's really goes hand in hand. So turning to mission, look, outreach is near and dear to everybody in our parish. We're such an active collection of people. All of you, I'm sure, give time and effort to various outreach activities. If it were not for Jim Lisher, tapping me on the shoulder, I would not have gotten involved with Career Resources in Bridgeport, which is a beautiful organization that serves, in many cases, returning citizens. But it was really, I have to make sure I give credit where credit is due, because Jim gets a lot of credit these days, but it was really Eleanor who told Jim to tap me on the shoulder. So we are inspired to develop a new strategic plan for our outreach mission. There is a lot of energy here at St. Mark's to mobilize. And we cannot be thrilled enough to announce Jim Follett, who's sitting right in the middle here. Jim, wave your hand, who will be leading this effort for us. Jim is a retired operating executive. He's also a member of Social Impact Partners. For those who aren't familiar, Social Impact Partners is it's the leading nonprofit, in my opinion, in the state, because it's making a thriving Connecticut. It really is. It covers certain segments: education, workforce development, and other causes. They are a huge influence over Career Resources, where I do spend a lot of time. And so Jim brings an incredible background in that regard. But like I like to say about Least and our beloved community effort, where I would follow Lease into a burning building, I feel the same way about Jim. So we're thrilled to have you, Jim, and look forward to hearing more. You all will hear much more over the coming year as we develop that plan. Beloved community, we are committed to beloved community in our parish. It feels more and more important every day. Father Peter's sermon over MLK weekend highlighted our amazing Civil Rights 101 pilgrimage to Georgia and Alabama. This trip was so meaningful. It was educational. It was sobering. At the end of the day, though, it was an experience that filled our hearts. It left us wanting more. So to that end, Beth Ralston has organized a wonderful trip to Harlem coming up March 13th, the evening of March 13th, which is a Friday, and Saturday, March 14th. We hope you can join us. And then followed later in 2026, probably fall of 2026, we are looking to organize another pilgrimage, Civil Rights 201, and have a bunch of great ideas to bounce around. Are excited to roll that out. So more to come, on that front. Lastly, I'm really proud of our church and our vestry. We have purpose at St. Mark's. We do this work for the love of Christ and really in the greater good. Before handing over to Tim, I wanted to share a picture that I came across on my cross-country bike trip a couple summers ago. I passed lots of churches and, covering 4,000 miles, but I thought this one summed it up nicely. It was in rural Indiana, and I think you can all see it, but it says, "Too hot to keep changing sign, sin bad, Jesus good, details inside." So thank you. I'm going to hand it to Tim, but God bless you all.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Is it okay? Nice. I got all my kit and I'm organized. Okay, greetings, everyone. Thanks for being here today and for taking the time to hear an update on your church's financial health. As you've already heard, the health is very good. So no surprise. On the agenda today, a quick review of financial market indicators in 2025. We'll take a look at our endowment and our beneficial interest in Lancaster Trust. We will review our 2025 financial results and take a look at our budget for 26. Our measure of liquidity as a proxy for our general reserve, highlights from the Treasury Department's objectives for 2025, and finally, things we look to do to accomplish in the coming year. So here are some quick financial metrics for 2025. You all lived through it, you're familiar with it. Inflation remained reduced over the last year after spiking violently due to supply chain issues coming out of COVID. That said, inflation measures have remained sticky at around 3% above the FOMC's target rate of 2%. The Fed had started easing in the fall of 2024, and they continued to do so in 2025, lowering the overnight lending rate target by another 75 basis points. Yields in the Treasury market also came down, with the yield curve steepening a bit, as is typical when the Fed is in easing mode. Equity markets had another successful year, finishing the year at or near all-time highs. That despite a violent sell-off of nearly 20% in early April when the president announced his plans to impose tariffs on imported goods. The S&P 500 index finished the year up just over 16%, and the Russell 2000 index a little over 11% gain in price on the year. Okay, there are two pools of invested funds from which we draw monies into our operational revenue stream on a monthly basis. The smaller of the two, is my mouse on? It's not. The smaller of the two, shown here in gold, is the Jean Lancaster Trust, a trust established decades ago by a St. Mark's parishioner. The trust is managed by Deutsche Bank. The other component is our endowment held here in the Donations and Bequests Fund of the Episcopal Diocese of Connecticut, a fund managed by the Bank of America, and shown here in blue. On this slide, we're looking at the balances of these funds at the beginning of the year, any amounts that were added during the year, income and, our total draw out of those funds for 2025, income and appreciation of the funds, and our ending balances at the end of the year. Okay, so as you've heard already, the donations and bequests ended the year at $11.4 million, another $2.3 million in Lancaster Trust, and we have a total of long-term invested funds of $13.7 million. So again, we added into donations and bequests $1.2 million of Inspired by Love campaign funds during the year. And over the course of the last few years, as you already heard, we've added $4.5 million of IBL funds. Our total draw for the year between these two entities was just over $500,000. Donations and bequests, of course, is the lion's share, 83% of this total $13.7 million. The Lancaster Trust is the much more aggressively positioned of the two, with about 85% held in U.S. equities, compared to just 68% for the D&B fund. Of Lancaster Trust's total portfolio, a chunky 16% is held in the stock of just one company, NVIDIA. This, of course, has been a hugely successful position for the trust, but also represents a very concentrated risk. Okay, slide 7, excuse me. Did I lose my mouse? Okay, on this slide, I highlight just how impactful additions to our endowment have been in increasing our ability to draw funds into our annual revenue stream. For our 2026 budget, sorry, wrong slide. On the left here, we have a bar chart showing the growth over the years of the total of D&B endowment and the Lancaster Trust. Since 2020, these funds have increased by 128% to that 13.7 million we talked about. Since 2022, when we started adding monies from the IBL campaign in, we've increased those funds through additions, market gain, and income, net of our annual draw, at an annual growth rate of about 18%. On the right is a pie chart showing the allocation of the aggregated two portfolios. And at the bottom are D&B portfolio total rates of return net of fees over various time periods. I'd like to point out here that the long-term rate of return over the past decade for D&B is just under 7%, which happens to be their long-term goal that's held within their investment policy statement. All right, back on track. On slide 7, we have a pie chart showing the major components of our, sorry, guys. Where is this? On this slide, I highlight just how impactful additions to our endowment have been in increasing our ability to draw funds into our annual revenue stream. For our 2026 budget year, we expect to draw a total between the two of about $560,000. This will be 19.6% of our total budgeted revenue. Back in 2020, the total draw of about $300,000 was just 12.8% of revenue. So we've gone from 12.8 to an expected for 2026 of 19.6%. The growth of our endowment has been a significant contributor in growing our revenue stream over these last few years. Okay, we've seen this already before, the pie chart showing sources of our revenue for 2025. So you've already heard that 68% comes from pledge, gift, and plate. On the expense side, the business of delivering what the IRS refers to as intangible religious benefits is a people business, and 64% of our expenses go toward taking care of those in charge of orchestrating the manufacturing of those benefits. All right, here's the meat of it. Bear with me on these next two slides. There are a lot of numbers here, but believe it or not, these are already summarized to a significant degree. We will first look at our revenues on this slide, and we'll follow up with a second slide featuring expenses and net results. Dollar figures here are in black across the years, with percentage shares of total revenue or expense in blue, and year-on-year changes for the given category in red. The histories are here, but I will focus on our preliminary results for 2025 and follow on with our 2026 budget. I'm going to jump right to the bottom line, which is way down at the bottom. I hope you can see it. So not shown here, but our budget for 2025 that I reported to you a year ago was for a modest deficit of just under $16,000. I'm happy to report to you that our preliminary results for 2025 has us back in the black at a $32,000 surplus that you see at the bottom. Do bear in mind that this is preliminary, and any changes are more likely to reduce that surplus than increase it, as any late 2025 bills arrive. So how did we accomplish that swing from red to black? Well, by a few surprises to both revenues and to expenses. I will highlight the key drivers for you. Moving back to the revenue slide. With regard to accounting for our revenues, we record revenues in the year in which they are received, except for pledges received in advance of the year for which they are pledged. At the end of every pledge year, we receive pledge fulfillments that are made by intent or by chance after the December 31st end of the pledge year. As a result, those fulfillments become revenue for the subsequent year. In January of 26, we received an unusually large amount of late 2025 pledge fulfillments. Our initial draft budget for 2026 had included a fairly typical amount of $20,000 for these types of spillover revenue. But as a result of the amounts we in fact received in the first couple of weeks of 2026, our final budget for 2026 has adopted an increase, has increased that amount to $60,000 from a more typical $20,000. The net effect is to move $40,000 of 2025 pledge revenues into 2026. So for 2025, that's a detriment, right? We're trying to explain how we got to a surplus from a budgeted deficit. So that's going the wrong way. However, another revenue surprise in 2025 was in the all other category down here that you see at $242,000 realized. That exceeded our budgeted amount by $32,000. So offsetting to a large extent those late pledge fulfillments from 2025 arriving in 2026. A significant portion of this amount was due to gifts made in memory of those we lost during the year. So that really is just an incredible testament to the love the parish has for them. Okay, moving back to the expense slide. With regard to 2025 surprises on the expense side, we had budgeted in comp and benefit an additional $30,000 for an additional part-time employee, and that did not come to pass. So our expenses were under budget by that component. Unlike our revenues, our expenses are generally, at least the significant ones, accrued to their associated operational year. However, an accounting oversight led to a $17,000 insurance payment for 2025 coverage, which was paid in 2024, got expensed in 2024 instead of expensed in 2025. So our all other category, which includes insurance, was light, which is a positive to our bottom line of $17,000. So had it been recorded and reported properly, our expenses, of course, for 2025 would have been commensurately higher. So those are just a couple of the key chunky drivers to our preliminary that contributed to our preliminary surplus result for the year. Moving on to our budget for the 2026 year and moving back to the income on the revenue side. As you've already heard, we've had a very successful 2026 pledge drive, and we are budgeting $1.875 million versus the campaign's goal of 1.9, but that's as close as those two have been in many years. We're budgeted $1.875 million for pledges and gifts and $42,000 for plate collection, which is consistent with what we realized in 2024. That aforementioned $60,000 for 2025 pledges to be received in 2026 that I mentioned earlier is in here as well. So that totals to $1.977 million for 2026 for our pledge, gift, and plate budget. So along with the other budgeted figures that you see here, our pledge revenue for 2026 totals $2.86 million, which, as you see in red, is up 6.8% over our preliminary results from 2025. So, however, a more proper comparison would push that surprise of the $40,000 late 2025 fulfillment from 2026 back to 2025, in which case the total revenue budget increase would be 3.7%. Regarding the expense side of our 2026 budget, first I want to point out, which you've already heard something about, that 3 years ago we went down one full-time employee on our staff, and that position has remained vacant. We've made up the difference to some extent by the added efforts and hence stress on our existing staff But of course, also to some extent by an outright loss of things we would otherwise have accomplished had we had that resource. As you've already heard, we cannot continue in this fashion. It is time to add a full-time person to the staff. So our compensation and benefits budget for 2026 reflects here at 1.929 million, reflects 9 months of employment for an individual in that role. Also in that figure is an additional $30,000 for an added part-timer that was in last year's budget, but not in our results, as we've spoken to earlier. So with the other budget expenses here, our budget bottom line is for a deficit of just over 37,000 for 2026. Without the benefit of that $40,000 of 2025 pledge revenue arriving in January of 2026, that deficit would be reduced to $77,000. In addition, our comp and benefits has 9 months of that full-time person, not a full year. So that's starting to push our deficit into an area of concern. That said, we have faith and reasoned faith because the role that we're anticipating, that you've heard a little bit about already, will be an investment in our future. We expect that individual's work will increase our long-run ability to expand our revenue and hence ameliorate the deficit that we're talking about here. Okay, a quick look at our liquidity as it stood at year end. So we start with our cash and securities on the balance sheet. We back out preschool funds. By the way, all the financials that we've been talking about exclude the preschool. That's a separate report. But so we back out of our cash and securities on the balance sheet, these various items, to get to a total of just about $765,000. Which versus 2025 annual revenue is just under 29%. In general, we look to maintain a reserve capacity of 1/4 of annual revenue, 1/4 of our annual revenue. So we are on target with that figure. With regard to 2025 accomplished, here we have a slide of the objectives taken from last year's Treasurer's report. And lo and behold, we actually managed to knock off every item on our to-do list. I won't take you through all of them, but you can see them here. I will mention, however, that when it comes to the preschool bylaws, your treasurer played a modest role in the passage of these bylaws. The effort, as you know, was spearheaded by our junior ward, Mark, and a vestry member and preschool board member, Kate Bako. We're proud of this last one. It was spoken to last year. It wasn't on the actual list of goals for 2025, but we actually managed to reduce our draw rate from 5%, where it appears to have been since time immemorial, to 4.9%. It's a baby step for sure, but it's a step in the right direction, and we hope that we'll have the financial capacity over time to lower that rate further. Of course, a judicious rate is generally viewed to be in the 4 to 5% range, so we're at the higher end of that range, but we're taking a step. Regarding our objectives for the year ahead, we look to introduce a functional, I should say, cash flow statement. Preschool financials and financial reporting remain a key area of interest to me. Of course, we're always making tweaks to our various forecasting models and reporting tools. And finally, we look to identify an assistant treasurer to help the cause. Bear in mind, he will be compensated handsomely in intangible religious benefits. Tra-la. So please speak with Father Peter or any member of the executive committee if you feel so moved. And of course, as always, we are grateful for the incredible people of St. Mark's that support our church by serving on various committees. We are so blessed to have so many talented parishioners who donate their time, expertise, and treasure to maintain the health and continuity of this 260 years young church. So God bless you all. I know there's a lot of material here. Probably the best way, if you have particular questions, is to approach me or reach out to me via the church. Thank you for your time today.
So first off, I want to just say how fortunate we are to have an abundance of highly qualified people in our parish who can stand for election to the vestry and the nominating committee. And I want to thank everybody who has done that this year as well as in the past. And since I have one more year on my term of the nominating committee, I hope that if you are asked to stand in the future, you will say yes. And I will also say that I think we always say this, but this may be the most historically close election. I'll let Father Peter speak to that a little bit, but I think it's the closest anyone's seen in any history. So with that said, the members of the vestry: Nancy Geary, Jack McFarland, Robert Greaves, Sarah Casey, and serving a one-year term, Anderson Kenny. And joining me on the nominating committee, Allie Van Ness, Kent Percy, and Zibby Perkins. So again, thank you to everybody. And I hope those of you out there will consider standing for one of these positions in the future or again.
Thanks, Gary. You and your team did such a phenomenal job is what caused the problem here. So just as we finish up a word, those of you who've been around for a long time, I always love to tell that story about my not getting elected to any office. And on Saturday, I was working to put together my address today, and I missed the funeral of a man who's so near and dear to my heart. When I first thought of it, I thought I might break into tears. J. Clark Grew, the former Bishop of Ohio. And he was a very good man, and he was amazing to me. And his funeral was yesterday in Boston. So I ran for something in the Diocese of Ohio, and let's just say it didn't go my way. And he said to me once, he goes, "Oh, listen, man, you didn't lose, you got slaughtered." And then he said, "Don't worry about it. They hate your church." This was St. Paul's in Cleveland Heights, which is a phenomenal church. Anyway, I have a lot to say of also in the Diocese of Arizona, where I wasn't elected to anything. But and so I just feel very compassionate for those who weren't elected. I feel a certain amount of heart pain, actually, in a weird way. But I'm so delighted for those who were called. And it's the closeness of this thing. This is the closest it's ever been. Again, just have to say during my tenure, the church is old and long. And that I think it points toward the strength of our community, which is to say there are so many people that can serve. As I mentioned this morning in my 45-minute summary, that the greatest treasure in our community is the Spirit of the living Christ. The second greatest treasure is all of you. And what you bring and who you are. And that's why these races are so tight and so close. I'm trying to stay in the camera here, boss. I'm doing fine. Thank you so much. And I want to, with one vote separating so many people, and note that there was a tie. And I just want to say that this is incredibly biblical in its own right and the way we dealt with it. So many of you know that the Gospel according to Luke was written, and then book 2 was the Acts of the Apostles. And in the Acts of the Apostles is about what happens after the ascension. In fact, the ascension is restated in the Acts of the Apostles, and those of you who've been to the Holy Land know that the ascension takes place on what they call Mount Olivet, or the Mount of Olives, and then they come down the Mount of Olives, which is actually higher than the holy city of Jerusalem, but up, and they go into the upper room, and they gather in the upper room. The upper room is understood to be St. Mark's parents' house. And so in some sense, it's St. Mark's house. And there Luke lays out, and he names the 11 apostles. And you may know that in the scriptures, they don't agree on who the 12 apostles are, but he names the 11, and of course the 12th was Judas. And this is a little bit, it reminds me of naming the vestry here. And not only does Peter speaks to not only who is to be an apostle, he then goes through Judas's death. And then I want to read this to you. So they proposed to Joseph, called Barsabbas, who was also known as Justus, and Matthias. And then they prayed and said, Lord, you know everyone's heart. Show us which one of these two you have chosen to take the place in the ministry and the apostleship from which Judas turned aside to go to his own place. And they cast lots for them, and the lot fell on Matthias, and he was added to the 11 apostles. So you can read that in a lot of ways, one of which is the inspiration of the divine. And you can also read it that Peter, the boss, had no idea what to do, so they picked lots. And so we did the biblical thing. That was the election was separated by lots. We chose lots just because that's the best way to go forward. So I'm super grateful to all of you as we live in this biblical stream. Is there a question before we all hit our road, or is there something that needs to be done before we have a prayer and go our separate ways, as the final hymn just said? Okay, let us pray. Lord, we give you thanks for you, and we give you thanks for gathering us in the power of your Spirit and in your name. We give you thanks for this place and for these people, for those gathered and for those who are spread far and wide. We give thanks for the blessing that you give us. We give thanks for those who have been called to serve, and we give thanks for those who are called but will not be serving in this way. We ask that you bless our parish, our people, to bless in particular those who are hurting, those who are just need a warmer touch of your Spirit. We ask your blessings upon our community and our country and in the world in great need. And may the blessing of God Almighty, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit be with you now and remain with you always. The annual meeting is closed. Now go and make disciples who live a deeper life in Christ, a more holy communion with one another, and a greater love for the world.